People say I talk about some weird stuff, some far out stuff. But how about that chair that you're sitting in isn't solid? How weird is that? This reality is nothing like we think it is.
When I saw what Icke is doing, I was a bit jealous of him. Wow, look at what this guy's doing.
I don't know if anybody else could do it but him, actually.
We are in a period now where speaking your truth is not just important, it's utterly crucial to where humanity goes from here. The world needs renegades.
Let's start at the top. Who do you believe runs everything? And, we just found out that Queen Elizabeth she declares she's related to, the Prophet Muhammad. And I go, this is insanity when we find out she's related to Muhammad. All the presidents of the United States are related but one. How is that possible? What's the power structure?
Let's just very quickly just take this whole idea of conspiracy theory and conspiracy theorist. That's the great dismissing line for anything that's different from the norm. It's conspiracy theory. Well, the vast majority of it is provable fact, actually. But where did that come from? The terms conspiracy theory and conspiracy theorist came into widespread use because of the CIA. The CIA contacted major media organizations, you can see the documents on the internet, in the 1960s and urged them to use the terms conspiracy theory and conspiracy theorist to discredit those incredibly lunatic people that didn't think that President Kennedy was shot in the forehead by a bullet from behind, Didn't believe that one bullet went through loads of different people, changing angles and all that stuff. They didn't believe that. And, of course, they shouldn't believe it because it was a nonsense. But that was where it came from. That's how conspiracy theory and conspiracy theorists came into widespread use, and it's still being used. And it's a reflex action. Someone says anything that's different to the norm, conspiracy theory. Some of us were talking about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq before the invasion as being a complete hoax, a complete lie. We were called conspiracy theorists. Well, they didn't find them. Now, in this whole thing about how the world's controlled, it goes into some very deep areas, and I would say in the end, from my research of 30 years, it goes out of this dimension. But in the world that we see, the world that we experience, there is a global web which works like this. At the center, you've got what I would call the spider. This is the inner sanctum of the Global Secret Society network. And the people that are in there, you almost certainly won't know in the public arena. Then the strands in the web immediately around the spider, they are the most exclusive secret societies. Most of them don't even have names because they're much harder to track then. And then you come out, still in the hidden, coming out from the spider in the web, and you hit the secret societies we do know about. And I'm talking about the inner sanctum of them, not, everybody. Of the Freemasons, the Knights of Malta, the Knights Templar, the Opus Dei, the inner circle of the Jesuit order, and so on. And then you come out and out and out, and you meet a point that I call the cusp. And this is where you have organizations that are kind of semi-secret. You kind of know they exist, but what they do is not publicly known. And we're talking there about the Council on Foreign Relations in America that has driven American foreign policy since it was formed in 1921. The Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, again created by the Rockefeller family and Zbigniew Brzezinski, Jimmy Carter's former national security advisor. And the Club of Rome, this is an interesting one in relation to global warming. The Club of Rome was created in the 1960s to use environmental concerns as an excuse to transform human society. And I'm talking to someone who used to be a national spokesman for the British Green Party. I care about the environment, but I don't care about being lied to and the environment used to transform society into a centralized global state, which is what is being suggested to save the world from something that's actually not happening. So the next stage after these cusp organizations, which are groupings of people in banking, government, business, government administration, intelligence, media. Through that, we head into the world of the scene. We see government agencies. We see what we see on the news, what governments do, what banking systems do, what corporations do, what Silicon Valley does. And they appear in the world of the scene to be completely random and unconnected. But the major society transforming ones, if you look at the pattern where they're taking us, you need to go back to the spider, because that's where it's coming from. And in this way, what Silicon Valley is doing, and what governments are doing, and what the global warming movement is doing, are actually all connected, because there is a global agenda to turn human society literally into a mirror of Orwell's 1984. And I was writing about this 30 years ago, and look at it. 1984 is unfolding before our eyes all the time. And so it's not happening randomly, it's happening by design. And this is the structure that allows one central point to dictate global policy in terms of the way society and the direction society goes. And so when I've been around the world, into country after country after country, year after year after year, I see the same things being introduced, the same changes taking place, often justified by the same excuses, overwhelmingly so. Even the wording of the legislation can be almost a mirror in country after country. Now, that only happens because it's centrally controlled and centrally dictated, and it's this web of secret societies that allows that to happen.
When at the top, is it Queen Elizabeth? Is it the Jesuits? Or is there what about the Vatican? How high is the Vatican?
Well, they're all involved in this. You see, if this whole cabal, this whole he's going to say it, conspiracy, is not something that started 5 years ago, 50 years ago. This goes back literally thousands of years, and it's been a process of basically, in its foundation form, of constantly centralizing power. And I'll come to the Vatican in a minute, because that's very relevant to what I'm about to say. So you start off in tribes, and the people of the tribe decide what the tribe does. You then bring a vast number of tribes together, or at least a significant group of them, and you call it a country. Now, a few people at the center of the country, the nation, is now dictating to all the former tribes. And in Europe, with the European Union, we've now had the nations now centrally controlled by unelected dark suits. We have these trade groupings, which are basically centralization of power. And this has been the constant process, fewer and fewer controlling more and more. And of course, a long time ago in this process, we gave a name to it: globalization. Globalization is simply the centralization of power in the hands of the few over more and more and more. And like I say, it goes back thousands of years. So if you want to understand the Vatican, you've got to understand Babylon. Because if you go back to Babylon, which is basically the spiritual home of this cabal in so many ways, they actually worship in their rituals the religion of Babylon. In Babylon, they worshipped a trinity of the father god Nimrod, the son, the virgin-born son called Tammuz or Ninus, and the third point of the trinity was a goddess called Queen Semiramis. And the story said that when Nimrod died, he became part of the sun god Baal and impregnated Queen Semiramis with the rays of the sun, and she gave birth to the virgin Tammuz Ninus. Now, when that Babylonian, that bloodline group, that belief system moved in on Rome, basically they took the same religion. And so what Rome created was their version of this Babylonian religion, which was the father god, the virgin-born son, and instead of Queen Semiramis at the other point, they had the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, which Christianity symbolizes as a dove, which is how Semiramis was symbolized in Babylon. And all the characteristics and traits and names that were given to Queen Semiramis in Babylon, like Queen of Heaven, Virgin Mother, were given in the Roman version to the character of Mother Mary. So what you had was an outward expression of this Babylonian religion, where instead of literally drinking the blood and eating the flesh as they do in Satanism and they did in Babylon, and this cabal still do in their satanic rituals, amazing as it may seem to people who are hearing this for the first time, they have the rituals of drinking the blood as red wine and as bits of biscuit. You know, it's an outward, partly acceptable version of what, in the background, in the shadows, in the very dark places, these people actually literally get up to. And so it's something that has moved through thousands of years, but has just continually centralized power to the point now where we're heading to the ultimate point of power, because this is where it's been heading. And that is connecting the human mind, the human brain, to artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence becomes the human mind. It becomes human thinking, human perception, human emotional response, or what would pass for it then. And so we're looking in the face of this end game that has taken thousands of years to get there. And it's happening before our eyes. And this is not me pulling this out of the ether. People like Ray Kurzweil in Silicon Valley, the Google executive, he's openly talking about the human brain will be connected to artificial intelligence by, he gives a date of around 2030. And artificial intelligence is taking over everything. Look at it. You know, they want artificial intelligence cars, artificial intelligence lifestyles in every form. And that will control human society. It already increasingly is. So here's the question. Who's controlling artificial intelligence? Because once you have artificial intelligence literally controlling everything and becoming the perceptions of humanity via the connection to the human mind, which is where they're going, whoever controls artificial intelligence controls everything. The entirety of human society. So if you look at the story, they've started way back and more centralized power to the point now where the ultimate centralization of power, which is the control of human perception at source, AI, is basically looking us in the face.
So as we get into this, we see like NASA, we've seen like global warming, vaccinations. These seem to be all giant money grabs. Eddie, we were talking about last night. Your perception of Earth, is it do we live on a ball? Do we live on a flat plane? Is this
before we get into that, William Cooper, author of Behold a Pale White Horse,
right? Yeah.
He believed he worked for the Office of Naval Intelligence.
Right.
He was in charge of preparing briefings for Navy admirals and stuff. And in these preparations, and he was putting documents in logical order for these briefings, he came across an operation called Operation Majority, and it had a project in it called Project Red Light, and it was all alien stuff about reverse engineering, crashed UFO technology. So at first he thought, oh my God, this is real. I mean, UFOs are real. I'm looking at these briefings, and then he began to realize that they wanted him to leak in, and that there's been an operation going on where they're trying. He basically believed that the technology was real, but the extraterrestrial part of it was nonsense. And he got balls deep into researching everything about UFOs, and he realized that since at least 1917, at least he thinks probably before, that there's been an ongoing operation to prepare us for an artificial extraterrestrial invasion, and that's supposed to be the ultimate way to usher us into a one world totalitarian socialist government. And so he basically believed that, all these space movies and comic books and stuff. So when you look at Roswell, 1947, the end of World War II, 1945, Operation Paperclip, we bring in all the Nazis. The Nazis were already scaring their people with fake UFOs. They were making fake UFOs and trying to scare their people. So it seemed like when we brought over the Nazis and one of our brothers, it seems like they were like, you guys need to step up your alien UFO game. So Roswell happens, and all these movies and comic books, and then you look at like E.T. and Star Trek was created by Freemasonry and Star Wars, and then you look at children's programming. I got a 7-year-old, and it's just space down his throat all day, space. And then you look at the origins of like the Big Bang, and people think the Big Bang was invented by some astrophysicist when it was actually a priest from the Vatican came up with the Big Bang theory. So little by little, you start to think like, wait a minute. And then now on CNN, they're pushing aliens all over CNN. So that's a big red flag right there. What do you think about fake alien invasion?
Do you think Bob Lazar is being told to let him out type of thing?
Yeah, that's possible.
I think Bob Lazar is like William Cooper, who did figure it out. William Cooper figured it out that they wanted him to leave because Bob Lazar puts out a Netflix documentary and then he's on JRE and he's still alive.
And all he claims is that his friends got in trouble.
I believe Bob Lazar believes what he saw. I believe that. I think they set him up.
Well,
what do you think of
the truth I find in my life is never black and white. It's always a shade of grey. And when I've talked about there being a non-human element, and not necessarily extraterrestrial in terms of what that conjures in people's mind, but a non-human element to this human structure of control. I should be saying, see, told you, when, as you rightly say, we're now seeing the American Navy being much more laid back about, we're seeing all these craft and we can't explain them and all that stuff. But I'm not. I'm the opposite. Because if you look at the night sky and you're looking at a tiny fraction even of the Milky Way galaxy when you do that, you see all those lights and all that apparent distance. The idea that we're alone on a planet which, according to mainstream science, compared with the projected size of the universe, planet Earth is the equivalent of a billionth of a pinhead. So the idea that we are alone and there's not other life out there, for me, crosses the line of insanity. But if we're going to understand what's going on and we're going to be streetwise, then we have to look at evidence and we have to look at who benefits from us believing this or believing that. And I absolutely agree with you. There is an agenda which could quite possibly be played, which is to fake an alien invasion. Because I've just been talking there about what it's all about. It's about the centralization of power, politically, militarily. They want a world army. They want a world central bank. They want a world currency, which I've been saying for decades is designed to be just digital money, no cash at all, and look at the way that's going. Now, if you look at the outcome of an alleged alien invasion, in fact, Ronald Reagan kind of articulated it when he was in power. He said that if there was a threat from beyond, we'd all come together. And if you look at what happens when a country's at war, you get a war cabinet. There's the centralization of power. A lot of democracy things get put aside because we must fight the war. What would happen if a fake alien invasion was played and people believed it, is you would have the ultimate excuse to centralize power on a global level, military power, all power, to react to this threat. And I think that there's a very good chance that is waiting in the shadows to be played, yes. And that's why whatever subject you're dealing with, whether it's extraterrestrials or UFOs or whatever it is, you have to keep one step back and keep streetwise. Never mind, this is telling me what I'd like to be true or telling me what I've said is true. who benefits from this? So what is the reason that this is happening? So yes, there is non-human life out there. Of course there is, but is there a plan, an agenda to use the fake alien invasion to justify centralization of global power? There's a very good chance that's the case, yes. And there's lots of evidence to support that over the years.
Now, what do you believe about in regards to the moon landing? Do you think NASA faked the moon landings?
Well, I think that they have technology. You've just mentioned it. They have technology that is way beyond the space shuttle, and way beyond anything that we see in the public arena. And it's because they have that technology that they can, it's like I've been saying for years, just because you see a flying saucer doesn't mean it's flown by an alien. It's a very good chance it's flown by a human out of somewhere like Area 51 or something, because they have this technology. And this is one of the things that is very, very important for people to appreciate. Whatever the cutting edge of technology we see in the public arena, it's way behind what they have in the shadows.
Yeah, but as far as proof, though, do you believe that Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong made it to the moon?
I don't know.
You haven't looked into it?
I don't know. Not in the way that I've looked at loads of other things, but I don't know. But all I can say is at that time they would have had technology that was way beyond what they claim to have got there in. I think there are many questions about it. I think there's loads and loads of questions about it. But it's not something I've taken a lot of time to look at. What I have looked at though is what the moon is. What is the moon?
What is the moon?
Well, I was minding my own business as usual many years ago now. and what happens in my life is a subject will come up, and then out of nowhere, like a new one, and suddenly information about that subject is coming at me from all angles. And this happened with the moon. And I read a book called Who Built the Moon by a couple of researchers who were looking at the extraordinary anomalies in the moon. There are so many anomalies that can't be answered about why this is, why that is, why this is. And then I read an article by two Soviet scientists, members of the Soviet Academy of Sciences, which is actually written as long ago as 1970, where they were suggesting that all these anomalies could be answered in one fell swoop if the moon was not a natural body. And they suggested that it was some kind of vast craft. And again, don't look at this from our level of technological knowledge and our level of perception. This is the big mistake people make. They start out by what is happening here as being the arbiter of what is possible. That's a big mistake. What is possible, the arbiter of what is possible, is that which through evidence makes sense. And when you look at this article by these scientists, it made a heck of a lot of sense. And their suggestion was that the moon is actually occupied inside, and that's where it all is. And the outside is basically there to protect the inside from all the challenges and things that smack against the moon from the outside. And they explain how the moon is structured in a way that makes absolute sense, that there is kind of an outer shell protecting the inside. One of the things that they point out, and many others have pointed out, for instance, is the craters go down at kind of almost a uniform level, a uniform depth, no matter how big they are, i.e. how big the thing that hit the surface or whatever made them, the depth is pretty much the same. And what these scientists were saying is that's because you go down so far and bang, you meet this resistance, which is what the moon is created with to protect the inside. And there were a lot of whistleblowers that spoke at the press club in Washington many years ago now, people who'd worked for NASA, who were giving their evidence of pictures they'd seen of the moon on the far side of the moon and what was actually there. They were buildings. They were human-made or kind of not natural-made structures. And there's been a lot of people that have come out over the years and talked about that. And when you look at how they say the moon was created, it makes no sense at all. Basically, they don't know. They have this this theory that when the Earth was being formed, a Mars-type planet smacked into it, and some of it broke away, and it became the moon. And then when the physics of that didn't work out, they had another go at it, and they decided that this Mars-type planet smacked the Earth and then went away and came back and smacked it again, like, you know, the whammy, right? So it's like, you don't know, do you? And they don't. The moon is an incredible anomaly. For instance, the size of it should not be orbiting a planet the size of Earth. It shouldn't be. It's 2,160 miles across. So there are loads and loads of questions about that. And in some of the books, like one called Human Race Get Off Your Knees, I've gone into all this moon stuff in great, great detail, because there is a lot of evidence to say it's not what we think it is.